Hello, I am so pleased and so excited to be here today with Dr. Deborah Howell, who is a coach and mentor for healthcare professionals. She's been in clinical practice as a physical therapist for 26 years with extensive rehabilitative therapy, experience in oncology, neurological, orthopedic, and trauma involved populations. She's amazing. She's a certified health and life coach, HeartMath coach and mentor, and a Navy veteran. She is, on top of all of that, a best selling author and has three published books: Self Care and Healthcare, Heart's Alchemy, and Straight to the Heart of What Matters. Dr. Howe is truly committed to helping healthcare professionals and leaders recharge, renew, and restore a sense of well being and life purpose. She incorporates her emotional well being life philosophy into her trainings and programs to cultivate sustainable health and wellness practices for healthcare professionals to help transform the very culture of how we care and shape the future of healthcare. So it is an honor to welcome you here today, Dr. Deborah Howe.
Oh my goodness, Donna, I'm really happy to be here with you, and I love your beautiful smile in the background, and just well, it feels good. It feels good to be hanging out with you.
Well, I'm grateful to be here. You have three books, is no small task, and I know your passion for really, truly taking an entire culture and an industry and expanding it out in continuing to reshape healthcare of the future. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. So where do we start?
Yeah, that's always a interesting question. Well, yeah, so the three books that I have, my first book is actually 10 years this year since I published that first book, Straight to the Heart of What Matters. And and the irony of that is what was relevant then is so relevant today. And the other two books that I've written, the Heart's Alchemy and the Self Care and Healthcare, encompass the same principles and insights that I had, that I was inspired to write, because literally at the time when I wrote that first book, I felt almost like harassed to write because things kept coming to me everywhere, like when I was sleeping, trying to sleep, I'm driving, if I'm in the shower, like it all over. And then at some point I had to really surrender to the process to put it all together. But so one of the things though is I didn't promote it. It was more of a therapeutic process for me to just get the information out. And it was also how I practiced though. So with this awareness, so it was in real time a practical piece for me. And now it's really important that I share it in a bigger way. And it's been challenging, and I've shared some of this with you, to construct information, have a framework that really is a loose framework. It's a working framework that ultimately has no framework when it works because it is something that is not forced. It's an openness, it's a presence that we bring when we bring ourselves open in our heart to care. And so that's kind of been a challenge for me in this whole thing.
I can't hear you right now.
Oh goodness. Okay, so we'll see what you heard me. Yeah, I see you frozen too. So we'll just pause a sec and just see where we are. Can you hear me? Oh, you're back. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I missed out on so much of that, but I'm just going to jump in and ask you, because we are having issues with the beautiful technology that we are so inundated with these days. And it's kind of perfect though. It's kind of the microcosm of the macrocosm. You've got this framework and the structure, and it comes and goes and it flows. this just pulled out. But what I was hearing and what I felt I was hearing is, I mean, the fact that this was something that you were deeply inspired to write. Like, okay, put everything down, doctor, bring this to the world. And that 10 years later, congratulations, by the way, on the 10th anniversary of your first book, that 10 years later, it's never been more relevant in the world than it is right now. That's authenticity to me. That is inspired authenticity. And authenticity is what is sustainable in this world because it's what's real. With or without, right now, it requires that. It requires an open heart and the resilience to just flow. So I hope that I can hear you as you continue to share. I hope that I caught what it was that you were sharing.
You did, and thank you for validating what's authentic, because it's about truth, right? It's about truth, and we have our truth and reality comes through our perspective, and our perspective, is we are conditioned into our perspective from early on in our life. So whatever that looked like, especially from childhood, our beliefs, our influences, our conditioning lends to our perspective. And so as a healthcare professional, as a physical therapist specifically, I am working with people in an environment that they have experienced some kind of crisis, some kind of major change, and where their body has been physically impaired. Aspects of their body have been amputated, removed, right? Or paralyzed.
Oh, yeah.
So the impairment, the physical impairment of mobility is real. But I have come to learn that the working piece that is the bigger impairment is going to be what's underneath all that. Where are we in this? What do we believe is possible? And that's why it's so important as a provider. If someone is paralyzed or has a situation that seems very bleak, very grave, that if a provider says to them, this is as good as it gets,
Wow.
right? You'll never walk again, or what have you, whatever the outcome is, you have this amount of time to live. Like if we take on that as our belief system, then that plays out. That really plays out. And if we have an understanding that that's a perspective based on what we know, and rightfully so, we have a lot of research, we have a lot of things that we know. And we cannot take that as the whole 100% of what's truth, right? It's a piece. It's just like standards and these evidence-based practices. It's a standard, it's a reference, it's information. And yet there's a bigger intelligence and information that goes beyond this physical realm. And it's that's where truth resides. And through the heart, really dropping in, learning how to drop in, because through these situations, I can tell you that people are so afraid, so confused, overwhelmed. They may or may not have the support, at home, or just however they had lived their life before. I mean, wherever people are, that's where they are. But the thing is, this physical impairment is on the outskirts, right? And we have to back it up. We have to back it up to understand where people are resting. What's their resting state, right? What is that place? So authenticity, when you say authenticity, for me, that just opens up this whole field.
I love hearing you speak to this because I believe for 30 years, 40 years, I've traveled the world presenting things like as simple as, is it possible what you don't know is affecting the quality of your life? There's so much more, to your point, than those beautiful aspects of expertise that we all appreciate and need. But to be able to go to the authentic core. I mean, when somebody is dealing with trauma like you're talking to, I mean, you're the expert here, but I can only imagine the sense of powerlessness. And what is that dense emotion that lies below that, that you don't even want to feel because life has changed so much on the outside, you know? And to lean into you, to be the one, you and those like you who do what you do, to be the one to make it okay for me, to be the one to give me hope. Wow, that's a lot of power. It's a lot of responsibility too. Um, I just appreciate that your heart is so intertwined with the bigger picture, with the bigger culture, and with the awareness of what an impact that has individually and collectively in my experience.
Well, so, love, I've discovered honestly that love is the answer to every question. And it's peeling away, right?
Mhm.
Those other layers. But also now the thing about love is also how we define love, because love that in someone's experience, lived experience equals pain, right? Love becomes a barrier, or right, we're going to guard against
Mhm.
feeling
Mhm.
because we fear being hurt
Mhm.
or violated or betrayed, whatever that experience was. And the thing about being a practitioner and working with an open heart and a presence that we're able to gauge, first of all, what's going on in us when we show up to care for people who are hurting, who are afraid, who are confused, who are overwhelmed, all the above. And now we
Mhm.
have loneliness, like with this COVID situation, where people don't have visitation from family, from,
I'm
you
looking at you
know,
like I can hear you, but I can't.
yeah. So there's another element that's even complicating things even more, right? And the influence of our mental health um, challenges, right, with resources. So it's a very complex
Oh yeah.
uh, situation that we can go into. And as a practitioner, we can often be the target of a patient's offloading, and it's so important
Yeah.
not to take it personally, because it is in the patient's process in finding some way to be in control, although it's not necessarily conscious. It's a survival thing. We're trying to
Right.
survive, right? People trying to survive, but
Right.
the responsibility as a healthcare professional in how we show up, being aware of how we show up, has to do with what I've been starting to discuss, is the energetics of practice. Like this field, this palpable sense, right? That we can sense when someone cares,
Mhm.
like without them opening their mouth to say a word,
Amen.
just showing up is palpable. And we know that, like, and
You
I
know, I do know that. And I would guess everyone who's listening to this today or whoever will listen to it can think of a time in their life where they've been in the presence of someone that they just wanted to stay in the presence. And you didn't necessarily even be able to put your finger on it, but
Mhm.
this
Or
kind of
not, or
caring
not.
of that, well, it runs both ways, right? Get
Yeah.
back out of Dodge. But, I can think of a time I think, I don't know what it is they have, but I want some. I can feel the peace. I can feel they're present. When people know that they're being felt and seen and heard, it shifts everything. And I don't think it's standard procedure to have that expectation in a clinical environment. And so when you do, it opens, I mean, I'm giving you I'm trusting you to help me think I'm going to be okay, or giving me the encouragement to have the courage to do what it takes for me to do the best I can towards that outcome. And to have that, and I could feel that in you, that would, I mean, I know I've had a lot of opportunities to spend time with doctors, and yeah, I can feel the difference. And it doesn't mean they're not all competent and amazing and love what they do, but it's working with the heart as part of it that to me makes all the difference in the world as to how I respond, really, how safe I feel and just showing up back to authentically. And
Right.
that changes too. Authentically yesterday, this was my reality. But with growth, progression, expansion in today's news,
Hmm.
uh, authentically, it could tweak a little bit. But if I know that that's proper and real and sustainable, that's freedom to me, freedom in the situation, or at least the hope for it.
Right. And so safety is huge, right? Because I can tell you that I have been with patients who have had medical induced trauma, right?
Mhm.
And, but before that trauma, they have also had traumatic experiences, events in their life that have been, that have come along, and into the situation that they're in.
Mhm.
But so that sense of safety that we can create, that's important, that we create that sense of safety and trust, because decisions have to be made, right?
Mhm.
Life
Wow.
determining life progression, like real decisions have to be made. And if people make decisions based on feeling desperate to make a decision or feared into making a decision versus really being in their heart to make a decision, and
Mhm.
I've been at that point in time with folks, is that it's important to help people recognize that they have a voice in their care, and to engage them in their own process to help them feel empowered
Mhm.
is part of what we are to be facilitating as practitioners. And again, it requires that the time that we spend, because time seems to be the thing that gets to be a barrier to caring. However, I'm going to challenge that, saying, well, for the time that you are there, what is the quality of that time being spent?
Mhm.
And so to practice in this way is to be able to listen, actively listen, and empathically listen, and yet, um, without the judgment, without the criticism, because we read charts before we go in and see a patient, right? So
Mhm.
when you read a chart and then all of a sudden we have all this information, there can be judgment that's formed, right,
Mhm.
about what we might experience. So I would caution practitioners to take information and have it sort of off to the side. Don't let it lead, because that lead, can definitely skew an outcome, can skew what you might ask the patient. And
Wow, that's
already, yeah, like it's really big. And I can tell you, it's not that, it's a practice to take the information and not prejudge.
it's a practice we have to use every day in our life, and it's difficult to
Absolutely.
do. And you're doing it with a life outcome that isn't yours. So I just really want to appreciate your compassion, I think, because we do all see the world through our own lens, right? So if you're looking at that, that could lead the intention or your expectation, which could impact the patient. So what I'm hearing from you is that neutral space in your heart that, detached from a skewed perspective, and listen right there in the present moment to what's in front of you as well, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Almost like
And I'll give,
listening beyond the words, beyond the conversation, really truly, looking at the big picture that has brought them to this moment in your office, so to speak.
yeah. So, you know, one of the things that I I hear from patients is, like in the hospital setting, in the rehab setting, is that if I go in, my first thing is to meet who I'm going to be working with. And so there are patients who will say, so what are we going to do today? And my first thing is, first, I'd really like to just say hello and get to know you and get to know what's going on with you. And then here might be a conversation. Well, didn't you read it in the chart? Well, yeah, there's a lot of things in the chart to read, right? Matter of fact, I can't even access all the things that's in the chart, and let alone have the time to read it, even if I could access. So therefore, and here's the honest truth, is that some of that information is not accurate.
Oh, I
Okay.
know.
And so that's another whole different conversation. But when I come back to the patient, it is to meet who is here, to understand what is relevant in this moment, and how can I serve you to have the best and highest outcome for this time. And I want to know what's in your heart. What do you believe? What do you know? Like, it's important for me to understand what is working inside besides this physical outlook that's written on paper before I walked in. I want to know what's going on now. And so it is I have a tough love approach. I do, because there was a point in time when I got really, really sick. I got really, really sick to the point where I felt life leaving my body. That was in my first book. To speak to taking on responsibility that was not mine. One, I worked with a chronic pain population, right? I had my own practice. I worked with a chronic pain population, and I too had an injury and was dealing with pain. So I was really wanting to do everything I could to help people, and they would feel great when they were working with me. And then the responsibility was not there for them to take ownership for themselves. So that fear of me feeling like I was gonna lose my health and lose my life, and what am I doing wrong? And my intention was to help people heal. And my learning took me through some ups and downs and around and over. Yeah. So ultimately, what
I
I
call
learned
that wisdom, though. That's good.
was okay. Yeah. So hard knocks. Okay. But I answered. I listened, and I was willing to learn some things, because the option for me was like, I'm not going to be around, you know, and I had children, and I felt I didn't feel supported in my profession. I didn't feel understood, honestly, in for most aspects. Like, it was just not a conversation that I felt I could have with people that could really understand what was in my heart, because I truly cared, and I expended so much of myself physically, manually, doing hands-on work, but also just the conversations I would have and the things that I would see in real time. And then, and then the perspective of fix me, like, people want me to fix them. And that was beautiful, because it's rewarding to feel like you can help people to feel better, to have relief. However, this is not sustainable until we take ownership to learn about ourselves, learn about our own physiology. And so from that heart perspective of really entering into what's meaningful to us, what matters to us, and in real time. Because I'll tell you this, Donna, we have these kind of conversations about what really matters, and finding peace and finding purpose, and the honoring of life is, we're looking at this at end of life. And I'm thinking it's beautiful to be present in that way at end of life, so that people have peace. There's a sense of peace, and even there's an empowerment in that peace, right? As people transition. However, when people are alive and still have opportunity to live their life, not just exist, the responsibility of a healthcare professional is huge. However, it's not to lose ourselves, lose our health, lose our soul in practice. And this is a deeper conversation. It is about the self-reflection that I'm asking people to have, challenging people to have with themselves, to really decide, how do they want to show up in the world? Who are they when they show up? And would you want to be on the other end, the receiving end of your own care?
Yeah, I love that. You're cutting in and out, Deborah, but I think I'm still following and tracking the essence, first of all, of your heart, of your care. I can really feel the passion. You are passionate about this, and you're obviously extremely professional and wise, a lot of knowledge. Um, it goes back to the very basic, do unto others, right? Do unto others as you unto you is what I love to be right there. You know, what I love that you embrace that in your approach of the relationship with the patient. I'd hire you.
Well, it's a relationship, right? Just what you said, it's a
Yeah.
relationship. And if a patient is having all these different practitioners walk in and say different things, and they're there for various amounts of time, right? What is it in the teaching, in the understanding,
Mhm.
are we garnering? Are we able to show up for our patients to help them show up for themselves? You know, that's the
Mhm.
bottom line, you know, and because otherwise we're disabling patients. We are not empowering them to take ownership, to work with an understanding that they can help themselves, you know. And I have so many stories, just so many stories. But the most recent, which is just this week, and I had briefly shared with you about just a facilitation when someone gets in touch
Yeah.
with themselves, with what really matters to them, and then all of a sudden things start to move in them, and then there's this like energy, and there's this like strength, and there's this confidence that starts to emerge, and this like, you know, hope, and all this that just starts to spew out. So this, I also want to say, is measurable. You know,
Yes.
this way of practice is measurable
Mhm.
in distance. I'm a physical therapist. In distance, someone's able to walk, the stability that they're able to have, because again, if people are uneasy and unsteady, again, having the ability to calm and compose is important. However, it requires that, because we're picking up this field that's the practitioner brings in, that resonates with another in the room, that our energy can attune, right? We can attune. And so this is science. This is science, measurable science, that we don't talk about often, right? Because it can be construed as way out there, but I'm telling you, it's right there. It's
I
right
missed
there
it.
without question.
I wish I would have heard what you said. I think I know what you said because, as you know, I'm a longtime practitioner of some of the tools and techniques that I'm aware that you're licensed or certified in yourself. And what got me there was the awareness, the deep, deep, deep awareness that I could impact my own child um, through that presence, that I could impact her health, like the biochemistry in her body. And it was scientifically validated in front of my face. And it changed my world. It, I know it's true. And I'm aware of it every day. And it is, there's an immense responsibility that you have, you know, and I just, again, I love that you want to breathe that into the culture of, you know, healthcare. Not just you have the joy of witnessing somebody really waking up on so many levels through the support and guidance, but assuming that responsibility themselves. What a great feeling. I mean, I know I talked to you afterwards and you were just like, it could have been you. But to breathe that into the culture of healthcare itself, I just am so grateful. So so what now? What? How do you do that?
Yeah, so you know, I'm starting to do some trainings. Just I have some free trainings that are based off the books that I've written, and then it's going to expand into an immersive type of work for those who are interested in going a little deeper. And that's coming very soon as we are approaching the new year. But I call all of this inspiration, right? Because inspiration is the missing piece. It is about, like, because to inspire is to breathe in, and it is through the breath, and breath, when we say that expansive breath of awareness, we must walk with this expansive breath, because it's not just expansive, there's depth to it, but there's, it's the truth to it, you know. And I feel blessed. I feel blessed for the experiences that I've had. And I, anyone that has experienced this way of being, There's no question to when we're in that state, and it's in our heart. And I see you, and I think you're frozen, but not really. When we're in our heart, Donna, to care, right? And
You're back.
yeah, so when we're in our heart to care, that is a palpable thing. It's a palpable thing, and we're in this ebb and flow of life. And so I want to support healthcare professionals because it is very challenging. And, you know, with everything going on now, which is even
Unthinkable.
yeah. So, and there's a lot of loss going on. But, you know, so we have to be able to equip ourselves and have a community around that, which I'm developing. I have developing a community to support healthcare professionals for their personal and professional development and all of this. So, you know, in the full scope of practice, it's about our self-care as we enter into provide a resource for patients to move forward for their own healing, for their own understanding, and you know, and this all will affect systemically, right? It's all going to be, it affects systemic from that perspective of how we all practice, right? And,
Frozen.
okay. Well, you know, so
I want to respond to that because
can you hear me
I
now?
didn't hear any of it, but you started with self-care, and I know the importance of self-care. I can't imagine how
And
important it is.
the system as it
Yeah.
affects a system perspective, like when we all, yeah.
So what's the next step and how can we support you in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really to begin this conversation and to share, like, I appreciate you taking time to just have this dialogue with me because it's important. It's important to have these conversations, you know. It's, and I think you mentioned it to me, we talked once before, like about rigid, you know, there's the framework and the constraints in healthcare are kind of tight, kind of tight. So, and we call them standards, and they're a process. But remember, the patient has a process, the individual who's practicing has their process and understanding and their belief. So, you know, we have to look at all these pieces and look at it in its totality. So we have a framework that we work with as a reference and an understanding. And then the rest is that we have to be willing to open to hearing and learning in the present time, you know, because for any practitioner who thinks that they know everything, even in the most expertise, then you know nothing. And I will say that straight, because then you have limited, you've locked yourself off to new information, which includes the information that comes from a patient's understanding and a patient's lived experiences. So we cannot just compare and say, well, this person that has had this situation, similar to this situation, similar to this, is going to be all treated the same.
Oh my gosh, there's one thing I know that everybody is different and everybody is unique, like crazy. You have consistent wisdom and stacked knowledge and applications to offer, but somebody can walk in the door and in that moment, I know I'm a little bit of an anomaly. So I really appreciate it when I am with a doctor that would say, well, I want to get to know you. That doesn't happen very often because they're only permitted X amount of minutes for them to deliver their services. But it means the world to me because it's ever changing, you know, it is. And especially in today's world.
Right. So I see that you've also sort of
If you're
frozen. There you
you're
go.
frozen.
You're
But,
frozen. You're frozen too. Yeah.
yeah, like this is an example. Okay, this
Of
is
life.
exactly how life is right now, and we can either go or we can go wait, I think I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But authenticity, self-care, self-love, I just
Yeah.
to hear those words come out of a system that is so strained and so stressed is a beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
to know that that's the direction that some of the real professionals like yourself are taking it is really hopeful. And especially during this time, you guys are under more pressure than many. And those are the tools that are going to help you get through it. And, my heart is with you because I can only imagine.
Yeah, and we're people too, and there's real struggle in the system, and to the extent that some people are taking their lives, some professionals are taking their lives, which is, you know, I just my heart opens to that depth of struggle that does not see the light of
Mm,
the potential that, because they feel alone, or they, that silence, to struggle in the silence, and suffer, that it need not be that way. And I really am open and committed to serving my colleagues, and because we are in this to make a difference, to help people to heal and to feel hopeful and to feel empowered. And so it requires that we have the tools, and feel prepared. And actually it makes us, like, it engages us in this whole practice. It really, we feel it's not mundane, right?
right,
It's exciting. It's
right.
it's it's like invigorating when this stuff starts to happen.
I
And
love it.
and I love that. Like, hey, I used to
I
compete,
see that.
I used to, like, yeah. So but I'm a little older now, but I still love this dance, this kind of like feeling alive inside,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and love
It's a
is love.
gift.
It's just this
It is a gift,
purity
and to
of
be able to
love
feel
that
alive
is,
and feel alive and live out loud what is at the core of your own essence, as
yeah,
unique as it is, as
yeah,
you said before, we're a product of our environment, and it amazes me. We are a product of our environment, and it starts out, with our environment and what we learn from the media and our parents and everything else. And at some point, that same thing becomes our medical records. I love
mhm,
that you addressed reserving judgment because you become your medical record. And you're really not. You're really much more. That's just a little piece of who you are and a piece of your experience. So I'm really appreciating this conversation, Dr. Howell. And is there anything else particular that you want to talk about? I know that you're inspired, and I know that you're empowered, and I know that you are a Navy veteran. Boy, I can feel your commitment to that, what you're speaking to. And yeah, the commitment to the passion, the commitment to the experience, and that you have a good one too, that you and your patient have a good one by showing up as authentically and as fully as possible together. That's sounds like a new day for me.
it is beautiful, and it creates a win-win.
Yeah.
It's a win-win, and so it's refreshing. Like, it feeds itself, like
Mm,
it resources itself, because everything comes in as a resource, right? And it takes a life of its own. So listen, I see you're freezing on me again, and I might be freezing on you, but there you're back. So um I can let folks I hope that people will find value with this conversation, because it is an important conversation, and it matters. It matters in all the moments of our lives, but especially when we are in service to others.
mm,
That, number one, we show up full, and we show up aware and awake, but in love, in a state of love, that the expectation is to have the best and highest outcome, right? That we may not have all the answers, and that
mm.
it's okay in that moment not to have all the answers, because we are there to explore, and to and then these things get revealed. I mean, it's it's pretty cool when it all kind of comes together. So
I love, I love love. Love will always find the highest good because it's that from which we were all created. In fact, there's a favorite quote of mine, Ralph Waldo Emerson, that says, "That which lies behind you and that which lies before you are tiny matters compared to that which lies within you." And it lies within all of us. And I think it's love too. And I find it compassionately intelligent and extremely refreshing to hear that conversation coming out of someone who is working in the circumstances that you are, which are ever increasingly intensified, and the depth of your desire to bring everybody along the system with you in whatever manner you can support and serve the whole. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to get out and read your books. I know that. um, and you're frozen again, so
So, so I'm going to, if anyone wants to, learn more about this, if they are interested in connecting with me, I am on Facebook at Dr. Deb Howell. And I'm also, my website is victoryinaction.com. And so just reach out to me. And, I'm also, oh yeah, I have a podcast. Oh yeah, I have a podcast. Dose of Deborah, Rehab for the Heart. And yeah, this is, as I'm approaching 6 decades, I've learned a few things along the way. And, it's, life is ever unfolding. And I am learning to embrace this beautiful aging process and changing
I'll take it.
changing all the changes happening that that are just with all the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But I appreciate you so much, Donna, for just taking time to have this conversation with me. So
I'm grateful to be able to be a part of it, and anytime. And yeah, times are uncertain for sure. But you know what? One thing for certain, love's the highest choice. It'll go from there.
amen. And that's it. That's it. So I thank everyone for tuning in, and I hope this inspires you to tune in to yourself as well. Right.
Thank you.
So yeah. See you later. Bye.